Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. It's been a while since my last video, so thank you guys for coming back and hanging on in there for me. Today I wanted to go over our first FA Youth Cup game, which is coming tomorrow, so this Wednesday against Coventry. So I want to go over a bit of a match preview for that, and I'm going to go through what my starting 11 would be. And just quickly before we do that, I just want to say what a performance on the weekend from the 21s. I'm not going to go over it in detail today just because I haven't got the time to record it, but just want to give props to the 21s because that's one of the best team performances that I've seen all year from one of our academy sides. And it was so good seeing Jack Morehouse and Dan Gore absolutely boss the midfield, particularly Jack Morehouse because of the amount of injuries that kid's had. And, when he's playing and fully fit, you can just see how talented he is. And it's just such a shame that players as talented as him, don't get to play as regularly as they should because of those injuries. But just wanted to raise that I had so much fun watching them on the weekend, and it was a breath of fresh air and it was so good. But let's get on to the video and let's talk about the under-18s. So let's talk a little bit about Coventry then. So for those of you who don't know, Coventry are actually a Cat 2 academy, whereas United are a Cat 1 academy. Cat meaning category. Now, the differences between Cat 1 and Cat 2 is that Cat 2 academies generally tend to be championship clubs or below. And the key differences between the two are sort of finances and resources in the academy. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into it, a lot more than what I'm about to give you. But it can mean things like the level of scouting, the level of coaches, like I said, the finances that are put into the academy and the facilities as well. So there's a lot that goes into it, and teams can fluctuate from Cat 1, Cat 2 and below. And generally the Cat 1 academies, like United, tend to be Premier League clubs. Now, Coventry are in a completely different league setup to United. So they're actually in the Under-18s Professional Development League. And this season, they're not doing too great. So they're sitting 10th out of 11th in their league table. They've played 15 games, won 5, drawn 2, lost 8. They've got a minus 12 goal difference. They're on 17 points, whereas Sheffield United, who are top of the league, have 33. So there's clearly a massive gap between the quality of Coventry versus United, right? There's a huge disparity. But as you guys know, we all know what happened last season. We all know what happened. It was one of the biggest upsets in FA Youth Cup history in recent years, right? And I'm sure that Adam Lawrence and the coaching staff and the players will be totally aware of that, and they will not be underestimating Coventry and their quality, because anything can happen in this competition. And that's why the FA Youth Cup is the best youth competition, is that you get these upsets, right? And some of the players that would have played in that game last year will also be playing in tomorrow night's game. So they'll be aware, and hopefully there'll be lessons learned from that game, and they can use that as motivation. So going back to the game, I totally expect United to win, but anything can happen in this competition, like I've said. But let's look at the starting 11 and what I would pick. Okay, in goal, it's a bit of a toss-up. There isn't like sort of a clear number one in the under-18s this season, whereas in seasons prior, like Eli Harrison was kind of like the clear number one. Even though Tom Miles was like really good when he came in, it was obvious that Eli Harrison was the number one choice. Whereas this year it's been a bit of a mix and match. Like sometimes Will Murdoch has started, sometimes Burn Hughes has started. So there isn't really like a set number one, but I think I would probably go with Will Murdoch because he was the one that started in the UEFA Youth League, so the under-19s level, and he played really well against AZ. So I'm going to go with Murdoch in goal. So back four, because the under-18s hasn't really adopted the first team's tactics and formation. So back four, I'm going to go Camerson at right back, 2 centre-backs of Reece Monroe and Godwill Kokonki, and then left back, I'm going Harry Amas. So I've gone really strong because, like I said, we've seen what's happened before. I want to get through this first part of the competition, and for me to do that, you play your best team if they're available. Now, Amas did go off with an injury recently in a 21s game, so he might not play. And if that is the case, I would probably move Kokonki over to left back, and then I would start Dan Armour at the left centre back position. So if all players are available, that would be my back four. If not, like I said, I would just switch it slightly and put Kukonki left back and Dan on my left centre back. But if Evans available, that's going to be my back four. The defence is a really, really interesting one because when I'm looking at it, you can get creative with it, and you could put someone like Jace Fitzgerald at centre back, right? He started there at the start of the season after he came back from a long injury layoff, and he's also played there before for the under-16s, and I've seen him play there many a time, and he's always brilliant there. And I'm just envisaging a situation that United have 70% of the ball, 70 to 80% of the ball during the game, right? And to have someone like Jace in that centre back position, just spraying the balls out left, right, through the middle, cutting through the lines, it would be really useful to have someone like that in that position. So I wouldn't be against having someone like that at the right centre back spot, and then maybe pushing Reece out to right back, even though that's not his natural position. We've seen him play there before. Or just completely dropping Reece altogether, as harsh as that sounds, because Reece has played excellent this season and he's really good at bringing the ball out from the back and carrying into midfield, which I think is a really important trait to have in teams. And I'm just looking also with the height as well of Reece, to have Kukonki and Reece as a partnership. That is a really tall, athletic, physical back two, and also you've got that mix of Kukonki, who's very good on the ball as well and can play those line breaking passes. So the defence is something that I'm more than willing to chop around. If someone disagrees and someone wants to have a discussion in the comments, let me know what you guys would put. But yeah, I'm sticking to my original four: Amas, Kukonki, Monroe, and Camerson, but I could totally have no problems putting Jason there. Right, midfield three. God, this one is so difficult. It's actually painful to try and leave some of these players out. So here are the options. You've got both the Fletcher brothers, so Jack and Tyler. You've got Jacob Devaney, Jace Fitzgerald, Amir Ibrahimov, Jim Thwaites, Zach Bauman, and James Bailey. I think that's everyone. From the top of my head, I'm pretty sure that's everyone. I will double check, and if not, I will add something on the side here if I have missed someone out. But those are off the top of my head. And it's so hard to pick a three out of that. Now, if Shea Lacey wasn't injured or wasn't out, I don't know the exact circumstance of Shea's situation, but from my understanding, he is injured and he is out and he won't be playing tomorrow. If he was playing, I would 100% start him in that sort of like number 10 role. So he'd be part of like that midfield three, but he's not going to be available. So I'm not going to include him. And picking the three, the way we've played this season, we've kind of gone an anchor as like the 6, and then the other two have been kind of more advanced 8s. There hasn't been a number 10 as such for the routines this season. The two number 8s have to do a lot of work off the ball and a lot of running, and there isn't necessarily like that banker 2 with the one ahead. So based off of that, and based off of the two players that I want to pick in those two advanced 8 positions, I'm going to have to go with Tyler Fletcher at the number 6 position, because the height of the other two players is quite short. So I feel like I need a bit of height in that midfield, and I think Tyler Fletcher gives you that. And also, he's played really well the last few months, and I've really liked him every time I've seen him play. He's composed on the ball. He's got good engine. He's got the ability to carry the ball through the midfield as well, and he can also chip in with the goals as well. So I think he's a really good all-round midfielder that can play in that number 6 position. So putting him against Jace Fitzgerald in that number 6 position, it's very, very difficult. I can totally see why people would want Jason there, and to be honest, I could probably be convinced as well. But the reason why I'm not picking Jace is because of the qualities and the attributes of the two players that I want in those 8 positions. For the advanced 8 roles, I'm going to go with Thwaites and I'm going to go with Ibrahimov. For me, as a duo, those offer so much in that midfield that I think as like a balanced 3, it's perfect. You've got Thwaites, who's absolutely incredible from set pieces, whether that be free kicks or corners. So you've got a threat there. He's really good in tight spaces. He likes to link play with other players. He's also, what I've noticed, he's good at slowing the play down as well. He's one of those players that can pick up the ball and just keep it calm if necessary. And I think in a game like this where emotion will be high and there'll be a lot of possession for United. I think you need someone like that in the team. But comparatively, on the other side, so with Ibrahimov, you've got someone that when they get the ball, they want to play really quick and they want to run with it and break lines with that kind of ball carrying. And whereas Thwaites kind of isn't like that, he's kind of more of a you touch, I touch player, and he wants to bring others into the game. Whereas Ibrahimov is one of those players that's going to make a lot of runs on and off the ball, which is really important to stretch defences. And I can imagine that Coventry are going to sit in quite deep and allow United to have a lot of the ball. So having someone like Ibrahimov that's going to make those runs beyond the centre-backs, beyond the midfielders, and also pick it up in deeper areas and run forward with it as well and create space for his teammates, I think as a 2, that's the best that we can go with. And then, like I said, given that though Ibrahimov and Thwaites aren't like the most physical in terms of their height and stature, I think it's nice to have someone like Tyler Fletcher in that 6th position then. But as a 2, in terms of Ibrahimov and Thwaites, those 2 are very, very good off the ball and they do a lot of running, like a lot. And they don't get pushed around as well. In all fairness to them, like I said, they are smaller players, but they get stuck in, and that's really important as well. So that's the 3 that I would go with, as much as it pains me to drop, someone like Devaney or Fitzgerald or Bauman, because, they're great players as well. And I wouldn't be annoyed or concerned at all if any of those players were in that 3. But that's the 3 that I'd want to see. Okay, so getting to the top end of the pitch, the front 3, the left winger, the right winger, and the striker. I think the right winger pits itself. I think you have to go with Mantato. I think if Shea was fit, he's another player that could play in that position and might start ahead of him. But Mantato's been really, really good this season, and he's just such a danger anytime he's playing, and he really can pin back the fullback. And also, because of how good he is and because of how unpredictable he is, you guys saw in my previous video, I did a bit of a breakdown in like how he's able to receive the ball in the wide areas and how he can go down the line and come inside quite easily. And it's really, really difficult for the fullback to get close to him in those scenarios. He's such a threat, and because he's such a threat, you're also going to get scenarios where players are coming over to help the fullback to try and stop Mantato, so like a double up or a triple up, similar to what we see with Saka in the moment in the Premier League. So if that happens, he's going to create space for his teammates as well. So I think Mantato was a locked in position for me. He has to start at the right wing. So for the left wing position then, I'm going to give it to James Scanlon. I don't think there can be much debate around this because there's not many options to start with, but just because Scanlon's having a really good season. And I think a big thing with Scanlon is just the experience that he's going to bring to the team, because this is going to be his 3rd year in the FA Youth Cup. And a lot of the players that I've picked so far will have not had much experience in the FA Youth Cup. So I think Scanlon's going to be really good in that sense for that additional experience. And you've got to factor in as well, right? Scanlon's played international football, like men's international football. So his sort of experience levels is way above most of the players that are going to be starting that game, or in the squad at least. And whilst I do think that experience can be a bit of an overrated factor, especially in academy football, I think sometimes you get scenarios where players are picked because of their experience and maybe not necessarily because of the quality. So you might have someone that's younger with less experience on the bench, or that's left out of the squad because of the fact that they're younger and they don't have that experience, and you're kind of compromising on quality a little bit. But I don't think that's the case at all in Scanlon's situation. I think his experience will be a really positive attribute to the team. And you've also got to factor in as well, right? This guy's a good player, and he is the under-18's top scorer this season. So he gets involved, goals and assists. If you factor in under-19s football and under-21s football, Bianchiri's a top goal scorer. So as the collective 3 of all the age groups, Bianchiri leads the way in terms of goals. But if you look at exclusively under-18s football, Scanlon is a top goal scorer. So it would be a bit stupid to leave him out, right? And I've just realised I'm a walking contradiction, because after just saying that you can't drop Scanlon because of his goals, I'm going to drop this season's top goal scorer, and I'm going to start Cheeto over Gabe Bianchiri. Bianchiri scored 18 goals this season, and like I said, he's the top goal scorer across the academy this season. And I don't want to put him on the bench. I really don't. I've said many a time on Twitter and on this YouTube channel that I've really, really been impressed with him this season, and I think his game's gone up a level. For me, I just want to see how Cheeto gets on, and I think a little bit is that kind of like new toy syndrome. I think I'm self-aware of that I just kind of want to see someone that I've not seen much of yet. I've seen Bianchiri play now for 3 seasons, so I just want to see how Cheeto gets on, and I think part of me can't ignore his record at under 18s football as well. I posted a graphic on my Instagram and my Twitter the other day about him being the record under 18s goal scorer. So I think it was 38 or 37 goals in 23 games, and if you look at the minutes per goal, the games per goal, compared to the other players on that list, it's just absolutely unreal. The numbers are insane. I just want to see him giving a go, and I think potentially, I don't know too much about Coventry. It might be that their back four is all 5'10" and they love playing out the back, and they're terrible from set pieces. But I've just got this, I suppose, stereotypical image in my mind of them being quite physical and having, really rough centre backs and players that want to, beat you in the air and stuff. And I just think having Cheeto's height could be really important in, to kind of match that physicality, right? Whereas Bianchiri's a bit more sort of interlinking and things like that. I also think Bianchiri would be a more effective player coming off the bench. We've seen that, if you look at last season and the treble winning team, the amount of times Bianchiri came off the bench and made a difference, that was kind of like a frequent thing that we saw. So I think he's amazing off the bench and he can bring something different to the team. That Cheeto, I think if Cheeto came on as a second half sub, but I think it would take him longer to get into the game. I don't know, with Cheeto as well, I do think there's kind of like this kind of like element of aura around him. I think when you watch him play, you do get the sense that players are scared of him. I don't know. I think people know who he is, given the fact that he's made this big money transfer from Arsenal. People know who he is. And I think that does play a little bit in players' minds as well. And also, you've got this element of Cheeto being, like 6'4", whatever he is. And because of his rep, because of his name, players are going to want to beat him. And then you get into scenarios where they're focusing so much on Cheeto that they're not really picking up other players that could exploit those areas. But I wouldn't care either way, whether it was Bianchiri or Cheeto starting. I'd be happy for both to start. And I think this is a really good way to wrap up the video and to reference this, that if we're going to go far in the competition, we're going to need to utilise the whole squad. And I put a post out recently on Instagram and on Twitter. If you haven't checked it out, go and look at it. It's on my Instagram. The full post is on my Instagram. I messaged the 2021-22 FA Youth Cup team, so the team that won it at Old Trafford when Garnacho scored in the final against Forest. I asked those players, what made your team so good and what advice would you give to this year's squad? And the common denominator from those responses was the togetherness of the team. They all said that the team just felt together and everyone had each other's backs, and the team chemistry and the team unity was so high, and everyone did their bit, and you could sense that, right? And if you look at the lineups from the first game to the final, there were some players that were kind of like common denominators, but there was some interchanging, and of course you've got players coming on as subs as well that made differences. So, I'm here talking about who I want to start tomorrow, but ultimately it's going to change round by round if we keep on going on. And of course, like I said, there'll be certain players that will stay in the team, but it's important that we give everyone a chance. And I think that's a nice place to end the video. So we're going to leave it there. I want to know what your team would be. So leave it in the comments below, or if you're watching this from Twitter, send me a message or send me a tweet and let me know what your team would be, because I'd be really interested to see how people view it differently. Because I think if you were to ask 100 people, I think the majority would come back with different teams. I don't think there's sort of like a nailed on 11 this year, whereas I think in previous years it's been a bit more solidified, like who would start. So let me know. Thank you for joining me again for another video. I apologise for the lack of videos recently. I've been very busy and I've been unwell as well. So I'll try and get some more videos out soon, but thank you so much. Have a good evening and take care.